Well, along with our candidates, we have our live audience tonight consisting of members from the Greater Houston Partnership, which is the Chamber of Commerce and business advocate for the 10-county Houston region.
We also have supporters of the University of Houston and Houston Public Media, all eager to submit their questions to our candidates.
From fundraising to advertising to low voter turnout, many people feel that the U.S. election process needs reform. We asked voters if they thought our political process was broken, and if so, what were their ideas to fix it?
The political process is not broken, the parties are broken.
Get all the politicians out and put real working men and women in those positions for a limited time.
I think our political process has become broken lately, especially with corporations able to now contribute vast sums of money to political campaigns.
The system we have now with the representation was created because message had to travel by horseback back in the day. You know, where are we at now? I think we have the technology to take that a step further and say, you know, we have email, we have internet, we can find out what people are really thinking. So I think there's a good opportunity to expand and get a little bit more of what the people really feel.
He's a familiar face to millions of Texas football fans. He was an All-American at Southern Methodist and went on to play in the NFL. After years calling games for ESPN, he turned his focus to serving Texas voters. Here are Lori and Dave with Republican Craig James.
Thanks for coming in tonight. We really appreciate it. Why do you want to get into politics? You know, it's a dirty word in some people's minds, and a politician. Why did you decide at this point to enter a race like this?
You've been hanging around my house listening to my wife?
That's what she's telling you?
Why are you doing this? A lot of my friends, you know, but they understand. Once they sit down and they hear me and they understand my background, and a lot of people do know me as the football guy or the broadcaster, but they don't know the background that I have, and growing up with the modest means that I did. And I saw the eviction notices early on in third grade, and we had to move a lot. I watched my mom persevere through a lot of different things, ate my fair share of mayonnaise-only sandwiches. But what people don't realize is that America gave me a chance to live the American dream and to do the things that I'm doing today. The fact that I'm here with you guys talking about the United States Senate is me living the American dream. For 30 years, I've been a businessman, and I've started a lot of different businesses. My ranching, real estate development, the last 3 years have suffered, and I felt a calling to step up and to do something about it. I've never had a calling like this before in my life.
Just the economy you felt was not being directed the way...
The passion that has been placed on me, and I am a believer in my faith. You know, I didn't want to let the Lord down, bottom line. And I've asked several times, you sure about this, Lord? Can you send me a text on it? And the confirmations that I get are unbelievable. And I know that as we visit here over these 12 minutes,
we won't see those texts a little bit later.
You won't see the text. But I want to do this for us, we the people. And the experiences that I've been through in my life, I think uniquely qualify me for this snapshot in American history.
Texas has been at odds with the federal government over a couple of big issues recently. One, the state pulled out of the Medicaid-funded women's health program. Texas has also been in a sort of a wrestling match with the EPA over federal clean air mandates. As a U.S. Senator, what would you see your role as being in these disputes between the federal government and the state?
Which dovetails back into the question you just, why am I doing this? As a businessman, I understand what federal regulations have done to my assets. The buyers of my properties, the assets aren't bad. They've gone to the sidelines. Why? Because of uncertainty, because of the regulations we have to live under now in this government environment that we have. So as a senator, my first and foremost thing is to push back, to get rid of the EPA, to allow us to drill and take care of our environment here in the state of Texas. We know what we're going to do. We don't want to hurt our lizards. We don't want to hurt anything about our water streams and sources, but we need to drill. And everywhere I go, the number one thing people talk about in this state is they want a job. How are you going to help me to be personally responsible? And I think ultimately we've got to push the federal government back in its limited box. That's my mission, is to go and to find a way to allow men and women and small business owners like myself to, again, get excited about providing jobs for other people and for the economy to pick back up.
But doesn't there need to be regulation? I mean, sure, Texans don't want our state damaged, but a corporation from outside of Texas might not care so much if if a profit is at stake.
Right. But in our own state, we're going to have our regulations. We'll have our environment taken care of by people here in the state of Texas. Again, we don't want to do anything to harm ourselves. It's like the Department of Education. One of the first things I would do is try to abolish the Department of Education and put all money in local officials' hands. Let us educate our kids locally. I am passionate about education. I think it's morally the right thing to do, and economically too. I mean, it gives us a chance. If we stop expecting every kid to want to go to college, that's not needed, it's not required. That's why we have 25% on the dropouts, 50% in the inner cities. Let's get life skills development going again in high school so that kids are prepared to be culinary chefs, bricklayers, electricians, plumbers. There are a lot of those needs in the skill force that we are not providing right now for the manufacturers. So, I look at the federal government as an encroachment into the decision making of us, we the people in the state of Texas. We'll take care of ourselves.
And something about back when you were a teenager, I don't know how you earned money and got by, what kind of jobs you had, but right now students are saying, I look at college, and UT Regents today apparently just raised some of the rates. It's becoming unaffordable. And what message does it send to cut those programs that are helping kids that really need that help to go through college?
Okay, so again, I'm going to expand then on my education concept here. Okay, and I'm a business guy, so I'm thinking, how can we grow the pie? We're still the #1 country in the world in the production of stuff. 21% of everything comes from the United States. Let's grow that pie. But in order to grow that pie, we need to take the corporate tax rate to 0%. Then you'll have manufacturers running back to the country, setting up shop. Then we'll need that skilled labor force that I just mentioned there. And those boys and girls, when they come out as 18-year-olds, they're personally responsible, feeling good about themselves. If you intend to go to higher education as a banker or a lawyer, that's okay. And they will find a way to get there. But there'll be better paying jobs for everyone because we're growing the economy. Let's grow that. 95% of the consumers of stuff live outside the United States boundaries. That's a big buying audience. We got to go tap into that, not stifle it.
But student aid, no reason to expand it or to cut rates on student loans?
You're going to always hear me talk about free markets. I'm a free market guy. And if I want to loan student A and student B money to go to college, I need to be able to loan student A and student B $1 at X%, and here are the terms to pay me back. And then you can go into college. And I've got to deal with you. And that's in the free market world.
You've been talking a lot about how Texas needs to take care of itself, but as a senator, you would have to work with all the other senators from all the other states. In Washington, what do you feel like should be done differently to improve the economy on a national level for the average American?
Well, okay, this is a big question here. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, right? And people, I used to run from the fact that I was a football guy. I wanted to be a smart guy. And I think that's why I worked a lot of different jobs. I would use those skills that I learned as a teammate to be successful in the halls of Congress. I was voted captain in high school, college, and professionally. That meant the teammates knew that I was working to be the best I could be. Those same leadership skills I used in my business life. That's what's helped me to be a successful business person. You got to do the same thing. Politics is the idea is the art of selling an idea. Bad politics is when you're selling a bad idea. So I've been selling ideas all my life. So I think we need to go up to Washington, and they need help from the real world. I'm a citizen. I'm from Real Street. I'm not a politician. I don't apologize for that. I would not be running if I had political background. So the fact that I'm from Real Street and I'm dialed in and understand it, I think that'll be a fresh of breath air for those folks up there to help get off of the center aisle.
Do you think it's intellectually dishonest to tell people that politicians can change the price of gasoline that we pay in the short term at the pump?
Yeah, I don't think. You know what? I think that right now it's an entire group that are responsible for not having a national energy policy. At the end of the day, why we don't have, as a citizen, okay. So let's sit here and say, what is their role? What's their responsibility to this? When we hear that we're not bringing in the Keystone Pipeline immediately, we're sitting there reading the paper and having coffee in the morning saying, now, that just doesn't make a lot of sense. That's 850,000 barrels of oil per day from Canada that we could get to come to our refineries here in Texas. That's better for us in Texas and better for us as a secure nation, perhaps energy security.
Wouldn't come overnight.
It wouldn't come overnight,
it would take a while to
but
build.
It takes time. And we don't even know that that's the real number with science. And we know that in the drilling world, the technologies have gotten us to where that number might be 3 or 4 or 5 times that. It's going to go to China if we don't get it. So again, I come at this perspective from that of a citizen, someone who's in the real world, in the real economy, that understands the trickle-down effect of all that policy stuff that they're giving. I had a commissioner tell me in Abilene the other day, said, hey, Mr. James, you just remember this. Every time you make one of them policies up there, just know the trickle-down question, what it's going to do to me in this courthouse right here. And I'm living in that, so I understand what he's talking about there.
What do you think about the Barnett Shale and the other areas that have had such great expansion right now in oil and gas exploration? And also, though, and gets back to regulation, the people in those areas are complaining about air pollution. They're complaining about their roads getting torn up. There has to be some way to say, maybe there has to be a mechanism by which to compensate and regulate what's going on in places that weren't so accustomed to this, like outside the Fort Worth area.
Well, I'm a rancher and I'm a mineral rights owner, and I love the fact that that's going, and we need to get those prices up because I'd love to have a bigger mailbox check money, right? I'll give you an example of what's working. I went to Midland 2 months ago, and after a full day of appearances, I tried to get a hotel room. 8 straight no's. We don't have a room for you. I finally get one who says, yes, we got it. I said, I'll take it. $149. I'm driving over there and I'm thinking, this is going to be pretty darn good. It was a goat ranch. I get there and I walk in this room and it had absorbed 1 million cigarettes in its lifetime. I turn the window unit on, poof, smoke comes out, and I'm like, wow. Now, why is that an important story? If we are left alone and able to drill, people are at work, the occupancy rate out there is 100%. You know, we need to get the government out of our lives, allow us to do the things that provide for families. It goes back to that thing I said. It's a silly saying. A strong family begins with a job, and that's what people want. And there might be some people who say, well, the gas smell in the air is a little high. Well, we're going to come take care of that and get rid of that. Nobody wants to be walking around with gas mask on, but we also want to walk around and feel good about ourselves with a job.
So you're a rancher, and the ranchers up in that area are concerned about the water being taken by the fracking process and whether they're going to have enough. And again, it's where you have to balance the needs of everybody. The ranchers have their needs for water. The fracking people have their need for the water to do the oil and gas drilling. Who's the mediator then?
Hey, nobody in this room wants to be able to light their water before they drink it, right? We want to make sure that we're safe with what we're drinking. But again, we have regulations, and we have inspectors in the state of Texas that are going to make sure that those people are not doing anything scientifically, proven science, not political balls, but proven science that's harming our waters. You know, as a rancher, I've seen the trucks in there. They take the water out of the ground. I've seen them try to go over in another pasture and just dump it in the pasture. That's where we got to be stopping that stuff. So again, I've been there. I understand it.
Let's talk about immigration a little bit. Where do you think the problem needs to be addressed? Is the problem with the illegal immigrants, the illegal workers, or do we need to be focusing more on the business owners who are hiring those illegal workers?
First and foremost, one of the real roles of the federal government is to defend our shores, defend our land, and we're not doing that. I would be a big proponent of using the United States military, not just on the 1,900 miles that we have in the South and Southwest. I'd take it and go to the coast and to the Canadian border. We're at war, both abroad and at home, and we have got to understand that. No telling how many undocumented illegals are coming into this country, setting up shop with the intent of harming us in America. We got to have an iron fist and defend with money the money that we need to support the boys and girls out there who are defending us. So let's secure the borders first and foremost. That's not the role of an employer. I would go after the employer who is breaking the law, hiring an illegal. But once we secure the borders, then we can have a real conversation about how we take care of the 11 or 12 million who are here illegally.
Build a wall?
You build a wall, 15-foot wall, they go with a 20-foot ladder, or they'll dig under it. I use our United States military with boots, surveillance, drones, technology. I like our chances against the pop guns of the drug cartels. Let's get serious about this matter.
Costs money, though.
Well, you know what? Can you afford not to? Can we afford not to defend our shores and our lands? And the answer is no. And so we've got the money. We got to take care of the men and women taking care of us.
Very good. Well, I think we're just about out of time on that.
12 minutes already?
Went by like a breeze.
Okay, good seeing you guys.
Thank you. Well, becoming an informed voter can be overwhelming.
So to help you learn more about each candidate, you can go directly to our website at HoustonPBS.org or KUHF.org and follow the links to the different candidates' websites where you can learn more about their views and issues.
As each candidate talks about their agenda and their ideas for making Texas and the United States better, how do you pick which item is the most important? We asked voters what they thought the newly elected senator's top priority should be in 2013.
Bringing more jobs to Texas, sustaining the jobs we have, and helping people who have been out of work and looking for work.
The healthcare system has to be reformed.
Protecting the competitiveness of the state of Texas.
Putting us on a path to balance the budget, but at the same time figuring out how to continue to help the people that need help.
I hope their agenda has the interests and concerns of the small business owners at heart.
Regaining momentum around some of the issues that I feel like kind of just spin around in circles, like for example healthcare. We say we need reform, we need to do all of this. Well, let's figure out a plan, and maybe more specifically to Texas, what's going to work for Texas, and maybe taking it to the national level. Let's figure out the small wins that'll help us get to where we ultimately want to go.
Our final candidate tonight was the first Hispanic Solicitor General in the state of Texas. Republican Ted Cruz has argued before the Supreme Court, and now he hopes to take his skills to the U.S. Senate. Here are Laurie and Dave with Republican Ted Cruz.
Thanks, Mr. Cruz, for being here. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
One of the obvious questions, I think, on the minds of a lot of voters right now is the ad that Governor Dewhurst's campaign has been running about your involvement in a lawsuit between an American businessman and a Chinese tire company. One political analyst actually referred to it as the most effective political ad in years. And you are related to that case, and I'm curious, why did you decide to represent that company? And when you take cases, do you consider how it might affect your political career?
Well, you know, politics is a funny thing. In the last 3 weeks, Lieutenant Governor Dewhurst has run over $2 million in nasty attack ads that are filled with lies, and they're all aimed at me. And you know what? Let me tell you, number one, why he's lying, and number two, how he's lying. The reason that he's lying is because conservatives all over the state are uniting behind our campaign, and it is because our nation's in crisis. And Dewhurst doesn't want to talk about his record proposing a statewide wage tax, 2.5% on the income, on the wages of every employee in Texas. And he doesn't want to talk about his record increasing spending by $72 billion. So he's spending millions of dollars trying to distract voters. What I would urge every listener to do is to go to our website, tedcruz.org, and we have a link on there that's called The Facts. And it lays out the lies that are in these attacks, and he's going to run millions of ads every day between now and Election Day because he doesn't want a comparison of his tax and spend record and my tax and spend record. Now, what are the lies in the ad? Number one, he says I'm a trial lawyer. I'm not a trial lawyer. I'm an appellate lawyer. I had nothing to do with the trial in this case. He knows that, but his ads are lying about it. He talks also about that I am the lead lawyer in this case. That's not true. I didn't argue the case. I work at a huge law firm. It's got 1,200 lawyers all over the world, represents tens of thousands of clients in matters all over the world. One of them was private civil litigation between two commercial tire companies. And one of them happened to be based in China. That one hired the law firm I work at to handle the appeal. I didn't argue this appeal, but I'll tell you, if you want to know my record on Chinese counterfeiting and theft of U.S. intellectual property, you should look to a case I argued myself. Last year in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, I argued a case called Global Tech versus SEB. It represented a large manufacturer against a Chinese counterfeiter that had stolen a U.S. patent. And in front of the U.S. Supreme Court, at my urging, the court upheld that a $5 million verdict against the Chinese counterfeiter and adopted a very strict standard for those who steal U.S. intellectual property. This is all about deception and distraction. And you know what? The voters are tired of it. They're tired of the political circus. They want to get to what's relevant, which is a comparison of each candidate's actual record, not the distractions that we've seen so long in politics.
Let's talk about then what you'd like to do if you were elected senator as it relates back to Texas. Oil and gas industry here is booming. That's a great thing for our state.
Absolutely.
How do you weigh, though, with calls for the elimination of the EPA and some other things to do away with certain regulations to protect the people who live next to the ship channel here, who live next to some of the places like the Barnett Shale and the others where there's lots of fracking going on? How do you balance that to protect our water, our air, against the needs to make money out there and to drill for oil and gas?
Look, everyone agrees we want clean air and clean water. The problem in the last 3 years is under President Barack Obama, this administration has had a war on jobs. And the EPA in particular has been rabidly anti-job. Just recently in the news that the head of the EPA for Texas said that his approach was the approach of the Romans when they conquered a nation, that they come in and pick 5 people at random and just crucify them. Now, fracking, which you mentioned, it has the potential to dramatically change our domestic energy picture. And in the past few years, it has done exactly that. And yet this administration has launched investigations into fracking, and mark my words, If President Obama is reelected, he's going to attempt to ban that. Now, that is as foolish and foolhardy as anything I can imagine, because with technological advances, we have the potential to be energy independent, to stop sending billions of dollars to nations in the Middle East that hate us and want to kill us. And if we would willingly give away those jobs, give away that opportunity, give away that energy independence, that doesn't make any sense.
But the fracking, the concern is that it might pollute the groundwater, and that it's going so fast right now that they want to say, hold on, let's make sure that we're going to protect for many future generations. After that oil and gas is gone, the water is okay.
No one who seriously looked at the issue believes those claims. That's junk science. The groundwater is at a high level of a couple hundred feet. The fracking is occurring typically thousands of miles under the ground, nowhere near the groundwater. But look, what this fight is about is this administration wants to shut down drilling. It's why in West Texas they're focusing on a lizard. And I mentioned you should compare records, because listen, every Republican is going to say they want to support oil and gas. Unless you're an idiot in Texas, that's the right answer. You got to look to a proven record. When I was the Solicitor General of Texas, I led a coalition of states in front of the U.S. Supreme Court arguing that the Endangered Species Act was unconstitutional as it applied to an arroyo toad that had never crossed state lines. When President Obama put the offshore drilling moratorium in place, I represented the U.S. Chamber of Commerce and actually the Greater Houston Partnership, the host of this event, fighting the Obama offshore drilling moratorium, and the Federal Court of Appeals agreed with us that the moratorium was contrary to federal law. We need a senator with a proven record who's a strong conservative and a fighter, not just someone reading conservative talking points.
We looked at the candidates with regard to social media, and by far you use social media more than anyone else in the race. Facebook and Twitter, you have nearly 21,000 Twitter followers, and I believe the second behind you is Mr. Dewhurst with 6,000 followers. Why is social media such a big part of your campaign?
Because the basis of this campaign is the people. We've been campaigning for a year and a half, 18 hours a day, 7 days a week. And the strength of this campaign is the grassroots, is Tea Party leaders uniting behind this campaign, Republican women uniting behind this campaign, precinct chairs. Just about every major conservative leader in the state of Texas has endorsed this campaign. From Kathy Adams to Kelly Shackelford to David Barton to Peggy Venable to George Strait to Ernie Angelo to George P. Bush. It is coming from the people. And I don't think any candidate can get elected to the U.S. Senate by blowing off the grassroots. The support has to be from the people, and the people are fed up with the same moderate, incumbent, establishment politicians. That's why our nation's growing broke. And they're looking for new leaders who are strong conservatives and fighters. And social media is a tool that the people are engaging and spreading our message.
Let's talk about the economy. It could be argued right now that austerity is not working in some European countries. Is there a lesson for that for us here in the United States?
There's a lesson, and the lesson is don't spend beyond your means. You know, last year...
But we have already, so what do we do now?
We have, and listen, we passed an ominous milestone last year. For the first time in the history of our country, our national debt exceeds our gross domestic product. Now, if you look globally and historically, there are three ways nations try to get out of that. They either cut spending, they jack up taxes, or they inflate the currency, they print money. And historically, the first way is always, always, always the best way. If you jack up taxes, your economy craters, growth goes down, you stop the job creation, and you go into a death spiral. If you inflate the currency, and I'm very concerned about the Fed, I've pledged to co-sponsor Ron Paul's Audit the Fed bill, it devalues everyone's savings and investment. It's a hidden tax on everyone. And the central question every voter has to ask in this race, our country is at a crisis. If we don't stop the out-of-control spending, the out-of-control debt in Washington, we're going to lose our country. And the central question that every voter needs to ask is not who's saying the right things, but have they walked the walk? You know, I used to work for conservative U.S. Attorney General John Ashcroft, and he would often say, if I'm ever accused of being a Christian, I'd like for there to be enough evidence to convict me. That's equally true of being a conservative. We need a senator who doesn't just talk about cutting spending, particularly when their record is increasing spending. We need a senator who doesn't just talk about cutting taxes, particularly when their record is increasing taxes. We need a senator who is a strong conservative and a fighter and bears the stripes I've spent a lifetime fighting for the constitutions and free market principles, and that's what we need in Washington.
Is there a danger right now, though, if you start cutting spending too much, that you're going to push the country into a second recession?
No. Now, look, what is pushing the country into a recession is President Obama's war on jobs. I'm running on a 12-point jobs and growth plan. The first half is stop the Obama war on jobs. Repeal Obamacare, every single word of it. Revoke the offshore drilling moratorium. Stop the abusive enforcement of environmental laws. Stop the assault on right-to-work states. Repeal Dodd-Frank. Allow small and medium companies to opt out of Sarbanes-Oxley, and then unleash the private sector. Slash corporate tax rates. 2/3 of all jobs in this country are created by small businesses. And yet this administration has been a boot on the neck of small businesses. If you want opportunity, you've got to get growth growing. That's the problem. And you've got to have a senator who's willing to stand and fight and has a record of doing exactly that.
But you also have to have a senator who can go to Washington and work with both parties, cross that line. You have to be able to compromise on certain issues. Do you feel like you can accomplish the things you want to do for Texas, for the nation, and still be able to work across party lines?
You know, we didn't get in this position we are in this country with out of control spending and debt because Republicans were unwilling to compromise. The problem is there are too many wishy-washy Republicans in Washington who compromise. And the way a Republican and Democrat compromise in Washington is they put their arms around each other and they say, I'll spend for your project, you spend for mine. This is a time when we need to draw a line in the sand and say we stand for the Constitution and we stand for freedom. That's what's at stake. Listen, a huge part of the reason I'm running has to do with my family story. My dad fled Cuba. He was tortured and imprisoned as a child. Fled Cuba in 1957, came to Texas when he was 18. He didn't speak a word of English. He worked as a dishwasher, making 50 cents an hour to pay his way through the University of Texas and to start a small business. When I was a kid, my dad used to say to me all the time, when we faced oppression in Cuba, I had a place to flee to. If we lose our freedom here, where do we go? That's what's at stake. If we don't stop this explosion of power and spending and debt in Washington, we're going to lose our country. My wife and I, we've got 2 little girls, a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old. I want them to inherit the same land of freedom and opportunity every one of us has been blessed to inherit.
All right. That does it for our time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.